What's up, bitches?
Let's talk about crime.
What's up?
Hey, bitches.
So we are on episode 2. I'm very excited. This is number 2. But before we get into it, was there anything you want to say? I'm just, it's kind of sometimes awkward. This whole beginning and ending these podcasts are really weird. I feel like sometimes.
Fun fact is I just celebrated my 24th birthday.
She's old as shit.
I know.
Which makes me old as shit.
I'm going to be in my mid-20s next year.
I mean, you're kind of already there.
No, we've talked about this in the other podcast, Fatal Blend. I'm not a true adult.
A true What the fuck?
A true adult.
I thought you said a trudel. No. I'm like, what the hell's a trudel?
No, a true adult, because I still live at home. I'm in the basement, yo. Facts. I am not out the house yet. Granted,
facts.
Life goals by ideally end of this year, beginning of next year, but I'm not a true adult.
That's accurate. That's true. Your dad says that all the time. He's like, well, you're not really a true adult because you don't pay for your whole life. And that's, hey, but side note to all you listeners out there, what kind of a parent are you if you don't support your kids in this crazy ass world right now? It is too expensive to live out there. So shout out to all the parents that are living with their 20 to 30-year-old children, because that is a thing now. Anything else? I don't think there's anything else to really talk about. So I guess we can just get into what we're doing, who we're talking about.
Who are we talking about?
We are talking about James Patterson Smith.
I thought you were going to say James Vanderbeek. That is an inside joke in our family.
That is.
So if my aunt,
joke.
If you listen to this,
shout out, Jess.
Yeah, I hope you're going to laugh your ass off at that, because, yeah.
But actually, funny thing is, as I was researching this, there is an author named James Patterson.
Oh, yeah. I've seen some of the books.
Yeah. So
James Patterson.
Can you imagine how hard it was to type in this dude's name and half the information was about James Patterson, the author, not James Patterson Smith, the murderer? It's crazy. We're going to talk about James Smith. I'm just going to call him James Smith. Anyways, we are talking about the fact that he decided to murder on April 16th, 1996. He murdered his 17-year-old girlfriend, Kelly Ann Bates. By the way, he's 48. Yes, I said his girlfriend. So we'll get into that.
That's not my go-to, but I ain't judging shit. Technically she's not an adult, but
this is also located in England.
Is it different?
It is different. She was tortured and then murdered. So that's kind of the premise of this dude. Okay, we're going to first talk about Kelly Ann Bates. So she was born May 18th, 1978 in Hatsley, England, United Kingdom. She was born to Tommy and Margaret, her parents. And she was honestly described as a really strong girl. She was confident. She was mature and independent for her age. And I get it, because maturity is exactly what Sierra is. When I was researching this, I kept thinking about this is very reminiscent of Sierra, because we always have a joke that she was born as an adult. She chooses adult. She always chooses to hang out with people that are older than her. As a child, she'd be sitting in on the adult conversations.
Yeah, I'd get told, go play with the kids. And I'm like, I don't want to play with the kids.
She's like, I don't want to play with the kids. I want to talk to the adults. And it's we're talking adult stuff. You can't be here. So I get that.
And now I'm like I just said, I
now
celebrated
she's
my
not
24th
an adult.
birthday.
But
I'm
backwards.
A fucking old grandma.
She is. She goes to bed earlier than I do. I mean, to be fair, you wake up earlier than I do. So
yeah, but still, my ass is
she is grandma.
9:00, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to bed.
She is. I mean,
hello, my friends are some of my friends are older than me, and they're like, Sierra, let's go out to the bars, and we're like, okay, cool. We are that friend group. 10:00 hits on a fucking Friday night, and we're home.
Yeah, because
we're not out till 2 a.m. anymore.
Which then we, as her parents, we will get phone calls from her at 3:00 in the morning as we're driving home from a casino, and she's like, "Where are you guys?
She's
She's like, "Do you understand what time it is?"
I'm the fucking parent.
She really is. Anyway, so yeah, she was described as, I mean, honestly, a lovely girl and very responsible. And just like she was just a light and she was herself. She also loved to play sports. And for example, she played hockey, but the team she was on was actually older women. Because she was extremely mature for her age, she hung out with older people. And then when she played this sport, she tried out for the team. They were much older than her and they made her the freaking goalie because that's how cool she was. Like, that's the kind of person she was. She also would babysit neighborhood kids and all kinds of, again, super responsible. And at the age of 14, while she is babysitting, that is where she actually meets James Smith. One other side note is as she got older, again, this is how things are different. She did attend college and she worked at a graphics firm. So she was like a pretty incredible woman all around. I say that because she died when she was 17. So the fact that for people in the United States, it seems weird that a 17-year-old would be not in like high school, but in college only and then working. But in England, it's different. So take that into account. Now we're going to talk about James Patterson Smith. He was born in 1948. There was literally nothing about his childhood other than people were talking about he was born like post-war era type shit. Nothing about his family, nothing about his parents, nothing. I don't even know if he has brothers and sisters, nothing. I couldn't find it every time. Like I said, when I'd search for him, it would come up with the author. So sorry, I don't have any like background information, which again sucks because I like to know when people are as awful as this guy is, why? Like, were you born just shitty or did something happen? It comes back to the nature versus nurture debate. Were you formed this way or were you born this way? Also, I just remembered, I forgot. This is a very big trigger warning for this episode. It is very hard to listen to and it is very gruesome. And just remember, this is a 17-year-old girl we're talking about. So I understand. Will not hold it against you if you choose not to listen to this episode, but there is some not so good things that happen. So side note that. He was described as a well-groomed teetotaler.
What the fuck is that?
I don't know. I don't know. How about you look it up?
You said it's a teetotaler?
Teetotaler. He was described as a well-groomed teetotaler and he was very house proud.
What the fuck? It's a person who never drinks alcohol.
I don't think that's what it means. Well, how'd you... Oh, it is. What the hell? I don't know why he was described as that. He wasn't a drunk. Okay, cool. And he was house proud. So that would make me believe he liked to be at home.
Well, it does say that it's the practice or promotion of total personal abstinence from the consumption of alcohol, specifically in alcoholic drinks. So okay. maybe I obviously didn't grow up in England, but maybe it's like a
compliment,
like with it being a practice. Like you know how there's like religious practice, like maybe that's something.
Sure. Okay, cool. So he didn't drink at all. Okay, cool. So he did get married. He was married. He got married in the 70s. And his marriage actually ended in 1980 after 10 years of abusing his wife. Like bad abusive.
Maybe that's why they mention it.
Maybe because maybe
at that time it was like alcohol and abuse were linked together, and so they wanted to make sure that it's like, no, this motherfucker wasn't an alcoholic drunk who beat his wife.
I am unsure. Oh my God, there's a bug next to your head. Swing your arm. I'm sorry. There was a flying bug.
Was it like a fly?
No, it wasn't just like a fly. It's right there. Bitch. I didn't want it to land in your hair. Okay. Sorry, there's a bug flying around in here and I'm freaked out about bugs anyways. Okay,
this shit wouldn't even harm you. She's acting like it's a fucking like giant tarantula or fucking snake or something.
It might as well be. No. Anyway, so yes, he abused his wife for 10 years and she finally said, I'm over it. Fuck off. I'm out. So she leaves. And then in 1980, so he gets divorced. Again, also in 1980, he ends up meeting a 20-year-old woman named Tina Watson. And if you just heard that, that's my dog. She kicked the bucket.
She's an old lady.
Not died. She didn't die.
Damn. She's old too.
She kicked a bucket that is next to my desk. Anyways, so he gets into another relationship with 20-year-old Tina Watson. And she actually had come forward and explained that he was very abusive towards her as well. She said that he used her as a punching bag. And she also said, at first it was now and again, just a little, the fuck was that? Are we haunted? What is going on? Oh my God. This is going to be a fucking shit show episode. Okay, sorry. Again, if you heard that, I have no idea what it is. It was probably a ghost because I don't know what that sound was. So she said, at first it was now and again, just a little tap. But in the end, it was every day. He would smack me in the face or hit me over the head with an ashtray. He would kick me in the legs or between the legs. He also attempted to drown her while she was bathing. And she did escape in 1982 after he tried to drown her and she was pregnant and she bounced the fuck out. Also, hitting somebody over the head with an ashtray, holy shit, that would hurt. I don't even, why? So again, she leaves in 1982, so he's once again single, but not for long because James decides to start another relationship with 15-year-old Wendy Mottershead. He also abuses her. At one point, he even held her head under the kitchen sink, attempting to drown her.
Where the fuck is the parents?
So, I think as we get into him and Kellyanne Bates, you'll start to understand how he was able to have a relationship with a 15-year-old girl in the first place. They believe, I'll say this, those are the three women that are known of, but spoiler alert, he gets caught. When he goes to trial, they believe there's like a lot more women, just none of them have come forward because he literally goes from 1982 to his next like documented thing was in 1993. So that's like 11 years. Obviously he wasn't single for 11 years, but nobody else came forward with anything. So in 1993, that is when he meets Kellyanne Bates and he begins grooming her and she is only 14 at the time when they meet. When he meets her, it's because she was babysitting for some friends. And I believe they were friends of his because I don't know why else he would get to know her. And he begins to groom her to be in a relationship with him. Now they do begin to have a relationship and he was Kelly's first boyfriend. Now he is 45 and she is 14 at this time. She does tell her parents that she has a boyfriend named Dave. Remember, his name is James. Okay. Obviously, that's not his name. She does keep a lot of aspects of their relationship a secret, like how old he is and his real name, because she felt that her parents would not approve. She is right. However, knowing what I know now, it is actually probably more plausible that Smith, so James Smith, was telling her not to say anything to the parents. And due to the fact that this was her first boyfriend and he doted on her and made her feel great, she didn't, out of respect for him, which is a huge manipulation and control technique that abusive people use. So really, I don't think she was really doing it. I mean, she could have been doing it to protect him, but it's more likely that she was too scared to lose him to tell her parents about who he really was. Now, her parents were actually supportive of their relationship because they thought that Dave was a boy from her school, or at least a boy that was the same age as her. And the mom had actually talked to Dave a couple of times on the phone. And she said he had a deeper voice than I expected. However, because Kelly hung out with older people, I started to think, well, maybe he was 16 or 17, which explained because again, she's 14. So she, she's kind of, well, maybe he was 16 or 17 because she's very mature. Finally, when she is 16 years old, she decides to introduce her parents to him. So now they've been in a relationship for 2 years. She brings him home and her parents were not home when she brought him home. And then her parents show up and she's like, hey, do you want to meet my boyfriend? So they bring him down. He comes downstairs and she's like, this is Dave Smith. And he's 32 years old, which is not true. He's 47 at this time. And his name again is James Smith, not Dave. Her mom at this point is super shocked. Her dad doesn't, they don't know what to do. However, UK law, because of the UK law, they cannot do anything about it because the United Kingdom's age of consent is 16. And she is legally of age to make the decision to date whoever she wants to, regardless of how old the companion that she chooses. Now, the mom really did not believe that he was 32. She said that when she saw him, she could feel the hairs go up on the back of her neck, and there was just something that threw her off about him. And she said, I could tell right away there's no way he was 32 years old. So they do eventually find out that how old he is. So Margaret, her mother, she didn't actually like Smith. And she said she tried to do everything she could to get Kellyanne away from him. But again, her hands are tied because legally she has no grounds to make them not see each other. So Kelly at this point is like smitten with Smith, and she starts hanging out with him more and more. And she's finding any and all ways to be with him. So she'll sneak out at night. She will come home like super late, or sometimes she'll sneak out and not come home at all. And then sometimes she would even like sneak out, or she would leave and like just not come home for a couple of days because she's spending all this time with him. And again, he is like the perfect boyfriend. He is love bombing her. He's making her feel super important. He's making her feel like I can't live without you type stuff. And again, this is her first boyfriend. So she ends up actually getting to a point where she spends the weekends with him every Friday, Saturday. She'll leave on Friday, stay there Saturday, and then come home on Sunday. Because of her parents, again, cannot do anything. They can't even, because in the United States, if your child is 16 and they're dating anybody that's over 18, it's statutory rape, or it's considered a statutory rape or statutory relationship. It's illegal. You could actually try to put a stop to that. You cannot in the United Kingdom, supposedly. At one point, Smith ends up trying to manipulate Kelly's parents. So he ended up calling Margaret on like the Sunday when Kelly was coming home. Like Kelly literally walked in the door, and a few minutes later the phone rings and it's Smith. And he's like, I'm really getting concerned because Kelly seems to be staying out late and she seems to be doing all these things. And I'm like worried about her. I love her so much and I want to take care of her. So Margaret is like, okay. So it's not just us that see her, we're not the only ones that are seeing her be like this. Okay, I have an ally in him. He's going to help me. And yeah, if she goes to his house on the weekends, he can kind of hold her accountable for the weekends and we'll do the week. So that was kind of her thought process, was, okay, I guess we can let this go. So yeah, she felt she had created a companion in him, or not a companion, an ally. And she was like, okay, we can get this going. I'm okay with them being together because I can't do anything about it. So as long as we're working together, she should be fine. Well, he becomes even more intrusive. And now he's calling all the time, and he wants to make sure he knew where Kelly was at all times when she was at her parents' house. So within moments of her coming home, all the time, is Kelly there? What is she doing? Where is she? Let me talk to her. And obviously that's a little bit of a concern. Margaret was kind of getting tired of her daughter just leaving whenever she wanted to, and sneaking out and coming home whenever, and then going to her boyfriend's house every weekend. So she says like, hey, if you don't stop, you can just get the fuck out of my house. Now, she did not actually say that. She did not actually want to kick her out. It was a threat. And so Margaret was gone, Kelly was gone. And then she shows back up at the house. She goes to her room, and Margaret follows her into the room, and she's got her back to her mom, and she's packing a bag. And Margaret's like, Kelly, what are you doing? And she goes, well, you said if I keep doing this, I had to leave. So I'm packing because I'm going to leave. And Margaret's like, that I did not actually want you to leave. I'm not actually going to throw you out. I just want you to stop acting the way you're acting. Be a 16-year-old kid. Like, have a life. And she turns around to her mom. One whole side of her face is bruised, completely black. Like, her mom described it as like, it was almost like from her nose all the way to her ear, a huge black bruise. One solid, like blackish purple bruise. Her mom obviously is like, what the fuck? And Kelly's like, oh, it's nothing, whatever. I got jumped by a group of girls. And she's like, okay, but when did this happen? Where did this happen? And how come you didn't come home? And she's like, well, I was unconscious on the side of a road, and there was a couple that found me, and they took me into their home, and they took care of me until I could come home. And her mom was like, yeah, that shit did not fucking happen. Because she actually, her mom.
I'm not even a mom and I'm sitting here calling bullshit.
Right. Right. Her mom's like, that's not
I'm sure I could have come up with a much better fucking lie than that.
She's like, that's not what would, actually her mom did say, oh my God, that bug is coming at me. Okay. Her mom did say, which sidebar, I found out her mom passed away in 2020. So when I say her mom said these things, it's like a documentary thing that I watched. So I physically saw her mom like say these things. Anyways, her mom said, I was like, that's not how that would have happened. If you were unconscious on the side of the road, they would have brought you to the hospital and the hospital would have called us. Like they wouldn't have just taken you to their house and hidden you away and made you better.
Also, if I were like a parent, I think my first thought, especially with him calling all the fucking time, my very first thought would have gone to him.
Of course.
Even if she would have stopped at, I got jumped by a group of girls, I don't think I would have believed that.
I don't think she believed it either. I think by this point, there was a lot of red flags for the mom. But again, she couldn't do anything. So these were the beginning signs of his abuse towards her. Also, she's again spending more and more time with him. They start to notice that like she's not showering anymore. She has a really unkempt appearance. Like she doesn't brush her hair. She walks with her chin, as her mom described, she walks with her chin, like looking down, like her chin touching her chest, like no confidence, right? All of her beautiful, mature, independent confidence is gone. She is just like, no, she's just kind of like, not a skeleton, but she's like a shell, right? Of her former self. And she's losing a bunch of weight. So her mom is already kind of like, things are really not good. So she actually went to the police. Her mom did. And she was like, I don't know what to do because my daughter, I think she's being abused by her boyfriend. And they're like, well, she's 16. And they said, the only thing you can really do is when she shows up with signs of abuse, bring her to the hospital. So there's documentation, but legally you can't do anything. The documentation is so that if she ever wants to do anything, but you can't do anything as a parent because she's legally of age. November 1995. So again, they've been dating for 2 years, 2+ years. She moves in. Kelly decides she's going to move in with James Smith permanently. And he is also still a lazy piece of shit who is unemployed. So she's literally going to go move in with him. Her parents really did not want her to go, but they agreed to, as long as she continued to keep in contact with them. Because again, she's 16. She's of legal consented age and she can do whatever the fuck she wants to at 16. So they're like, cool, if you're going to move out, we'll support you, but you have to stay in contact with us. You have to come visit us. I need to make sure you're okay. She agrees. So at this time, they now know that he is not 32-year-old Dave Smith, but 47-year-old James Smith. And they talked to him about it. And he said, I didn't tell you because I thought that you wouldn't want me being with Kelly because of the age difference. No shit. Obviously. And that tells me everything I need to know about you as a person. Over the next few months, she starts to withdraw from them. And on the few occasions that she does see them, she shows up with new bruises and different injuries. Her mom starts to notice that she has fingertip bruising, like around her neck. You can see like where fingertips might have grabbed her. At one point, she had a bite mark, like a full-fledged fucking teeth bite mark on her wrist. And her mom called her out on that. And she came up with some fucking bullshit story. And her mom's like, that doesn't look like that. That looks like somebody bit you. And she's like, no, it's not. So she always had some way to explain away her bruises.
All I can say is there's no way I would ever be able to get away with any of that shit because I'm not discounting what this mom did because she probably didn't know what the fuck to do at the time. But I can tell you right now, there's no way in hell I would have ever been able to lie about those because you would have fucking grilled me until the truth came out.
Pretty
and also
much.
You probably would have fucking locked me in a room to make sure I was safe.
Yeah. I mean, right now you're 24 years old. If I ever had an inkling of a thought that you were in an abusive relationship, you wouldn't be in an abusive relationship. Like, I don't care what I'd have to do as a parent. And I know that that's actually a very unpopular opinion. I know that most people feel, well, it's your child. And, when they're adults, they're adults. Yes, you're right.
They're still your fucking children.
They're still your children. And the thing
they're
is,
still a human.
People who are in abusive relationships oftentimes can't find the strength to leave because they're scared.
Well, because they also the abuser typically starts by mentally abusing them
100%.
so fucking much that they degrade them to where they basically make them understand and realize like you are nothing.
You're nothing without me. Yes. And that is, and you think about her, she was 14 when they started dating.
And it was her first boyfriend. I remember when I had my first boyfriend, I was very like head over heels smitten.
Yep.
Like,
Yep. You do everything.
And he wasn't an abusive guy or anything like that, but it was just like, it was that infatuation of love.
Yep.
That it's like, you can't, it's hard to separate that fact, but then especially having such an older guy as well.
Yeah.
And that he's obviously done this before, which she didn't know. But
no, nobody knew this about him.
Knowing his history, it's very clear to see where he was able to manipulate very easily, especially at that young of an age, whether she's mature or not.
No, you're totally right.
Brain development.
You're totally 100% right. And again, having the ability to be able to stand up and leave somebody who is abusing you is an extremely hard thing to do. Now, I will say that, why are you creeping me out, dog? Go lay down. This dog, she's not allowed in here when we record anymore. She's not. Go lay down. We have ingrained it in our children's head because, sometimes abusers will say things like, if you leave me, I'll kill myself. Or if you leave me, I'll kill your family. So we have made it very clear to our kids growing up, especially because sex trafficking and all the things in the world, that's a big thing they typically use. We always used to tell the kids, like, let them fucking come try. Like, let them I want it to be ingrained in their head. Even if somebody did come and fucking try to kill me because they wanted to keep my daughter, I'd rather die trying to fight to save my daughter than to let my daughter think that we were just going to give up. And to let her think that, oh God, my parents can't protect me. Like, we made it very clear. And that is not a dig at her parents at all, because they genuinely did everything they could. And it was really sad to watch their documentary, because as they're, obviously they're older now, but as they interview these people, the hurt, the anger they have, the sadness is the hardest thing to watch as a parent, because you just sit there and you're like, they say, we did everything we could. We begged her. Like, after they started seeing these bruises, they begged her and pleaded with her. Please do not stay with him. Come back home. Stay with us. We'll help you. They did everything right. Everything right. And she just wouldn't do it. And because, again, there's nothing legally they could have done. You just have to sit there. And her mom did say that, like, she was the first thing she thought of in the morning, and she was the last thing she thought of when she went to bed, because she was just like, I don't fucking know what's going on in my, and again, her daughter's 16 years old, right? Like, she is 16. That's like,
well, and I'm sure, I know you said the mom's passed away now, but I'm sure even as the years have gone on from when this had happened, I'm sure they both, but especially the mom, because it sounds like the mom was more involved and openly would talk about it. But I'm sure they're also sitting there thinking, we did what we could, but what else could we have done?
Exactly. Of course.
And having to live with that, like, not that it's their fault at all. I'm not saying that.
No,
but the fact that they have to live with that guilt
100%
of, I'm sure we could have done more. What could we have done?
What else could we have done?
How could we have approached it differently? Like, it's so sad.
So this argument that Margaret has with Kelly about leaving Smith, because she's like, please leave him, actually leads Kelly to withdraw from her mom pretty much permanently. She tells her mom, I just got this new job and I'm not going to really have time to come over and see you guys anymore. That's false. She did not get a new job. So in December of 1995, she moved in with Smith in November. So by December, so a month later, she had quit school I don't know exactly when, but a couple years into their relationship, she stopped going to school, which, again, that's sad. Like, her life, she was like ambitious as shit, but this dude made her not want to go to school. So she quit school. And now in December of 1995, she leaves her job, because she did have a part-time job working at a graphics company. So she quits that. She becomes reclusive and most people don't see her anymore. Her parents still received cards from her. The last cards they received actually were for their anniversary and one of their birthdays. But Margaret said they were not signed by her. They were not addressed by her. She could tell by the handwriting. They kind of think that James was sending them to kind of keep them away from her. Her brother tried to go see her. He was not allowed to go inside the house because he was told that she was gone. Her brother's friend at one point did claim that he saw her and she looked just fine. And then there was like a neighbor, because again, she moves into this house and this neighbor actually comes over and she's like, so how's Kelly? I haven't seen her in a while. He basically is like, oh, she's fine. Like, and they're like, are you sure? Like, I haven't seen her. And he's like, yeah, look, she's upstairs. And so in the upstairs window, Kelly looks out the window and like kind of looks at the lady and then goes and sits back down. So like legit, she's not allowed to leave the house. He was physically abusing her daily and he had now successfully ostracized her from everyone. So now she is in this house by herself every day getting abused by this 47-year-old man who is her boyfriend. So that brings us to April 16th, 1996. James Patterson Smith shows up at the local police department and tells them that he accidentally killed his girlfriend during an argument. He claims that she was in the bathtub and had inhaled water. I'm not laughing at it, I promise. It's just the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. He also claimed that he tried to resuscitate her, but he failed. And then he tells them that in the beginning, he thought she was pretending to be unconscious because she did that often. Yeah, right. Because you probably beat the shit out of her and she became unconscious, you fuck twat. Okay, anyways. So police go to his home because they're kind of like, well, this is interesting. And they do find her naked body in the bathtub. And it is very clear from the moment they walk in that this was definitely not an accident. So as they're walking through the home, they find Kelly's blood all over the house. They do a post-mortem examination, and it showed that she had over 150 separate injuries all over her body. Now, during the prior month, she had been kept bound all the time. Sometimes she was tied to a radiator or she was tied to furniture and he would tie her with her hair so she couldn't go anywhere. And then other times she was bound by her neck with a ligature to the same thing. So she literally couldn't move. William Lawler, the home office pathologist who examined her body, said, in my career, I have examined almost 600 victims of homicide, but I have never come across injuries so extensive. She's 17. Like this is what I'm talking about. She's 17 and she was tortured. So these were the following injuries that were found on her body. I will repeat it one more time. This is a trigger warning because these are really hard to listen to. They were really hard to research too. So they found she had scalding to her buttocks. She had scalding to her buttocks and left leg from like hot water. She had burns on her thigh that were caused by a hot iron. She had cigarette butt burns. She had a fractured arm, multiple stab wounds that were caused by knives, forks, and scissors, stab wounds inside of her mouth, crush injuries to both hands, mutilation to her ears, nose, eyebrows, mouth, lips, and genitalia, wounds caused by a spade or pruning shears. Do you know what a spade is? It's a fucking like the shovels that have the pointed end that you use for garden, like a garden. Both of her eyes were gouged out. Later, they found stab wounds inside of her eye sockets. She was partially scalped. But he accidentally killed her. Okay. So now it had been determined that her eyes had been removed not less than 5 days, but not more than 3 weeks before her death. So she was alive. And she had also been starved. She did not receive any water for days before she was found murdered. And the cause of death, her official cause of death, was drowning, which means all that fucking shit that they found on her body, she was alive. None of that shit killed her. Told you it's hard. Immediately.
That makes me want to fucking just.
I'm saying, right? Like, It's fucking, she's 17 years old. I mean, any aged woman, person, man, woman, whatever, this would be awful. But to think of a 17-year-old girl who had put her trust in a man for the last 3 years, that is what she dealt with.
Well, and I think what makes it hard too is, and this is going to sound like, because either way it's shitty.
Right.
But to know that all of that she felt. It's exactly. not like she had died even from drowning and then he did all that. Like, she was alive for all of that.
Yep.
And he fucked her mentally so hard that she genuinely knew that she couldn't do anything.
I would assume she knew she was going to die, which has to be even the more, because like the things he did,
I'm sure she probably wished in some of those moments
that she would die. Yeah, that she would just die. And also, you fucking asshole, you sit there and say, well, she would fake like she was unconscious. No, motherfucker, she probably was. You probably, anyways. So again, her official cause of death is drowning, but immediately prior to her drowning, he beat her over the head with the shower, like the shower head, and then he drowned her with the shower. And again, she can barely fucking move. Oh, and also he crushed her kneecaps, so she couldn't even walk. So
I'm going to be honest, this is going to sound morbid as fuck, and I really don't mean it. But first of all, it sounds like she physically would not have been able to put up a fight anyways, but I bet you she emotionally didn't even want to.
So some of the, they were talking about in the trial, which we'll talk about the trial in a minute, but I will say I did read one where they said that they like tried to refer it as almost like a mercy killing at that point, because she was tortured so badly that it was almost like put her out of her misery type thing, which is awful to say. However, you hear about all the things that happened to her, and it's like, I don't know how to feel about that, because could she have, if somebody would have found her and helped her, could she have survived? Yeah, sure. But could she have really survived? I don't know. So I understand where they're coming from. And I believe, actually, that was the defense that was trying to say it was a mercy killing. And you'll understand that more in a minute. Yeah, eye rolls. He still denied killing her. He did continue to claim that it was an accident and that her injuries, the 150 separate injuries they found, they were all self-inflicted.
Oh yeah, because
she just gouged her own fucking eyes out,
scalped herself,
and and she just decided to stab herself in the mouth a couple times.
Sunday afternoon, I'm just
want to do this to piss you off.
Like,
I'm like, you're such a fucking pile of shit. So now the trial starts, and Peter Openshaw is the prosecuting attorney, and he says it was as if he deliberately disfigured her, causing her the utmost pain, distress, and degradation. The injuries were not the result of one sudden eruption of violence. They must have been caused over a long period and were so extensive and so terrible that the defendant must have deliberately and systematically tortured this girl, which is true. Now, at his trial, Smith continued to say, I didn't do this on purpose. I accidentally killed her. And he claimed that Kelly would put him through hell by winding him up and getting him mad. Fuck you.
Yes, because that also gives you
the right
reason
to torture,
fucking destroy her.
Because you're shitty. He said that she would taunt him about his dead mother. Yeah, she probably did after the first fucking time you beat the shit out of her. And you know what? I would do. And that she often hurt herself to make it look worse than what it was. Meaning that he'd like hit her and then she'd hit herself like 5 times more to make it worse. Like, no, the fuck she didn't. She was 17 and you are an asshole. So then he also stated that the reason he had gouged her eyes out and then stabbed her in her eye sockets and then beat the shit out of her was because she dared him to do it. Right. Again, James, Mr. Smith, I'm not even going to call you Mr. Shitty person, you. I highly fucking doubt she was like, yeah, motherfucker, why don't you gouge my eyes out, bitch? Yeah, I don't think so.
I will say it's sickening, but it is pretty impressive that with how many injuries she had, that she wasn't dead already.
I thought that same thing when I was
like, it
reading.
makes it hurt.
It hurt
that much more, but like, to know just the eye thing alone, and how many stab wounds that she had. Like, that's
what do you call the what do you call the thing that connects your eyes to your brain?
Your ocular nerve.
He tried cutting that out. That's what he was doing. That's what he did.
Also, if ocular nerve is wrong,
no, I'm pretty sure that is no. No, I'm pretty sure
because I took human anatomy.
No,
I'm pretty sure it's the ocular.
I did
nerve.
not, so that's why I asked her. I'm pretty sure because her mom said that, and I'm just like, that makes sense with the stabbing. But all I could think of is they said that she was alive for at least 5 days without her eyes. Like, I get a fucking like eyelash in my eye, and I feel like that's the worst pain in the world. She had no eyes that were cut out and then stabbed. Like, how did she survive? Honestly, how in my brain, I'm like, how did you not die of like a heart attack from like the pain or, whatever? Like, she was a strong ass girl.
So much pain that it causes shock. And
I guess, I mean,
that could have been it though. It sounds stupid, but she could have been so fucking numb to all of it that she just, it's going to sound morbid again. And I don't mean it this way, but she was like a fucking voodoo doll that he could just, it rips my fucking heart out. But I also am like, what a badass. What a badass that she dealt with all this shit and didn't die until he had to drown her. Like, I know that sounds really shitty to say, but like, you sure fucking showed him. Like, that's how I feel. Like, good for you. This makes my heart hurt for the parents way more.
Oh yeah. Especially because her dad had to identify her body. And he said, you don't even want to, like, that's not how you want to remember your daughter. That's not what you want to look at, but somebody had to do it. So anyways, okay, so we're in the trial. So yeah, he says that Kelly dared him to gouge out her eyes. So a psychologist, Jillian Metzi, said that Smith has a severe paranoid disorder with morbid jealousy and that he lived in a distorted reality. I would agree. However, this is exactly why I say we don't use mental health as an excuse for bad behavior, because nothing can excuse your shitty fucking anything. Now, during the trial, during the trial is when it is discovered that James Smith has a long history of abuse due to the women coming forward for the trial. So that's why nobody had ever talked about his abuse before. The women, I don't even think went to the cops or anything. Like, it was just secret, which is why they say they are pretty sure there are more women out there that just either weren't alive or, for all we know, he killed somebody else. I have no idea. So the jury was composed of 7 men and 5 women, and it took them 1 hour to find James Patterson Smith guilty of the murder of Kelly Ann Bates. Now, November 1997, he is then sentenced to life in prison, which came with a recommendation of a minimum of 20 years. A minimum. Are you fucking fucked? Really? You couldn't just... First of all, what I'm not understanding is why he didn't get the death penalty. And it may be the state. Okay, it could be the state. But I don't... If there's ever a cause for the death penalty, this guy right here is exactly why. I don't give a shit if he has some sort of mental disorder. And I, being a psych major, totally am down for mental health awareness. But when you are that bad of a person, there is no rehabilitating you. And there is no reason for somebody like you to exist on this earth. So I don't know why there was no death penalty, but he did get life in prison. And his, or I guess I never mind. I say all that and I realize it's the United Kingdom. They don't have the death penalty. Her dad was like, all I could think of is, that's all this fucking guy gets is 20 years for what he did to my daughter. The mom's pissed, right? So the judge turns to James Smith and says, "You are an abuser of women, and I intend, so far as it is in my power, that you will abuse no more." So his only option was to give him life in prison with at least 20 years. Now, as of right now, he is still sitting in prison. And he actually was just recently up for his first parole in 2023. He did try to present evidence on his behalf. And he also tried to say that he is a changed man. And he was denied parole. And he was also denied an appeal to move to an open prison. So he did 2 things. He was trying to go out on parole. And if they didn't want to give him parole, then he was asking if he could change to a different prison that had an open prison where they can come and go. Like they have to be there at night, but they can like leave during the day. He was denied for both of those.
I'm actually shocked that he hasn't died in prison so far.
I know. He's I don't even know how old he is because get your calculator out. Get your calculator out. I'll tell you. He was 2024 and he was born in 1948. So he's 76 years old. So I'm surprised he's not dead either.
I'm not even saying like age. I'm saying just I've never been to prison, obviously, but
you mean by vigilante justice? I think he's locked in a like solitary.
Like a solitary?
I don't think he's allowed to be in public because of what he did. Because like even in the United States.
Yeah, but then there's that heartless part of me that's like, fucking let him go to Gen Pop. See what the fuck happens.
Of course.
He wouldn't survive 5 fucking minutes.
I am right there with you because in the United States, if you are a rapist or if a child molester or a child killer, you are typically put in a area of the prison where it's only people who have killed or hurt children, because if you go into Gen Pop, you die. And to be honest, I'm not saying one thing other than
that motherfucker deserves it.
If it happens, it happens. Shit happens, right? Whatever. So he's denied. He's denied parole. Unfortunately, he will be eligible for what they consider a further review. So he can actually take this to like another thing where they have to look back over a bunch of evidence. But they also listen to witness statements. They listen to like her parents I don't know. Actually, it didn't say anything about the dad dying, but the mom would have been able to speak on behalf of her daughter. However, she is no longer alive. They will talk to the prosecutors. They talk to psychologists and all these things. So, but he does truly have a chance, honestly, getting out because he got denied parole now, but he can go to a further review board that can overturn their decision. I just hope that they don't let him out because it would make no sense to me to allow him any freedom ever. Because not only did he take a 17-year-old's life, but he took her freedom as well for very long, for 3 years. And she wasn't allowed to be free once she lived with him. So I don't understand why he would be allowed to be free. I don't understand that. This is how bad it was. The jury, so again, 7 men, 5 women, they were offered counseling due to how awful this case was because they had to look at photos, they had to hear testimony and all this stuff. And every single one of them accepted it. That's how bad. Especially like think of the crime scene photos, right? Because they're going to have to look at photos of her body. So they all of them took the counseling. And the final part of this, Margaret, her mom, said it best. She said, "He's bad, not mad. He's an evil person," which I fucking agree. And what she means is that he's not he doesn't have like some mental illness that causes him to do this. He's just a fucking bad person and he's an evil person. And she said that on the show. And I literally was like, that's fucking brilliant. He is bad. He's a bad person. Yes, he has issues, but he is bad and he's evil. And so the other thing the mom said was that she used to oftentimes think about what her daughter went through and how her daughter felt because her parents never came and saved her, which just fucking guts me because as a parent, that's all you want to do. But they were trusting that their daughter was going to be strong enough if something got so bad that they would, she would be able to escape or ask for help, and she didn't. That is the case of James Patterson Smith, the shitty man who preyed on a young girl, took her life, tortured her, and still gets to live.
Well, and it makes you sit there and think about, like, it almost is kind of like shitty that you don't get to know a lot about his background.
Yep.
And I'm not saying whatever his background is justifies what he did. But then it makes you really sit there and wonder, like, what the fuck happened to you or didn't happen to you?
See, that's what I'm
saying. Are you literally just a pure fucking evil person?
So that's what I was saying in the beginning is it comes down to there's that old debate of nature versus nurture. Nature is how you were born. Nurture is how you were raised. And in psychology, there's always a debate about it because it's like, well, some people are just born shitty, or some people are born with some sort of mental health issue. Some people are just born bad. And then when, you can't say, oh, well, all serial killers are born bad, or all people who commit crimes are born bad, because when you really dig into their life, you find out that no, sometimes they're fine. But then something happens as they're growing up, whether they're abused or they're neglected, or they are, they suffer some traumatic incidences in life, and then it causes them to go down this shitty path. And so it's like, that's why I wish, and it's not to excuse any of his behavior, but my biggest thing is I always want to understand, like, what would cause a human being to be so awful, so awful. And actually her mom did say, people call him an animal. And she said, he's not an animal because an animal would never do this to another animal. And she's right. So it's like, you sit there and you go, what would cause somebody like you to be that awful of a person? And the only thing I can come up with is, you were born shitty. You were born bad. You were born evil. And that's it. Mental health aside, you were born, in my mind, you were born bad. But again, I can't even say, like, there's nothing that I can tell you about his past. I don't know if he was doing bad shit as a kid, or if he had some crazy shit happen in his life that completely triggered him to be some off the wall, having like psychotic episodes, which then creates him to do this kind of stuff. But my guess would be, because he has a history of abuse, he was born this way. Doesn't mean that he could have grown up in a household of abuse. However, I understand that abuse is a vicious cycle, but I always sit there and think, yes, if you grow up in a house where there's abuse, especially like watching, like if it's your parents, your father, like hitting your mother, when you become old enough to be able to know right from wrong, you at that point have the opportunity to try to change it. And you at that point have the opportunity to say, I'm not going to be like that, or I am going to be like that. There's a lot of options. And there's choices, and we have consequences for our choices. So I don't know. It sucks not knowing anything about his background. Sucks because it kind of leaves you with like, what would create such a terrible person? And we'll never know that answer, but I'm sure we'll know answers like that to the other criminals we do. That's it. I told you it was it's not a good one, but I do feel that I like to share the stories with people, and I'm not a fan of murderers. So you're not going to get any sort of sympathy for him at all, ever. And so that is the thing. Okay, so it's always awkward ending this. I never can figure out how to end these things. I will start off by saying, you can follow us on Instagram. It is Crime Bitches Podcast. If you just type in Crime Bitches Podcast, that's all we have right this moment. Oh no, actually I lied. We do have an X account that I recently just started, but I don't know. I'm trying to figure out all the social media stuff. Anyways, so you can follow us. It's Crime Bitches Podcast on Instagram. It's Crime Bitches Podcast on X. Or if you want to do like how it's like the @ symbol, it's just Crime Bitches, and you should be able to find us that way. And then if you have any like people you want us to research, or any comments you want to, reach out to us, we do have an email at crimeb, as in bitches, podcast@gmail.com, because they wouldn't let me put the word bitches in. So if you want to email us, it's crimebpodcast@gmail.com. And that is it for this episode. We'll catch you on the flip side.
Peace out, bitches.